All right, so now we're going to look at getters and setters, which are methods that are used to get or set properties for that object. Now we can use these with classes, we can use them with constructor functions, and even with object literals. And I'm going to show you all three, but in this video I'm going to start with just classes because it seems like it's the most common way and it's the easier syntax. Now there's a few reasons you would use getters and setters rather than just accessing the property directly. So for one, you might want to do something to the value before it's returned. You might want to, let's say, make sure it's uppercase. They're also used when you're using private properties. If you have properties that you don't want the user to directly access, then you can create a getter for them. Okay, if you want them to be able to set properties and have some additional functionality, you can do that as well. So let's create a class here. We're going to switch it up a little. We're going to have a class of person, and let's do a constructor, and let's say the constructor is going to take in a first name and a last name. And then we want to set this dot first name equal to the first name, and we'll do same with the last. So last name and last name. All right, now I can create a person, let's say person1, and set it to new person, and we'll pass in the first name of John and the last name of Doe. Now I can go ahead and console log here my person1 object, and I can access first name directly. Right, so you can see we get John, and that may be all well and fine, but you might want to do something before it's actually returned. Like you might want to make sure that this is capitalized. For instance, let's put lowercase j and lowercase d in here, so we get John lowercase. But let's say we always want first name and last name to be uppercase or start with an uppercase. So in that case, we would create a getter. So a getter is just a method, but we want to prefix it with the word get. So we're going to say get, and then whatever I put here, like if I say first name, then that's what I'm going to put here, person1 dot whatever this is. Now we're going to run into an issue here. Let me just go ahead and return this dot first name, and we're going to run into an issue because of the naming. So this, the name of the property and the name of the getter are the exact same. So we're going to run into an issue. What we could do is for the actual property is put an underscore before these, and this is typically used to signify that this is a private property and you shouldn't access it. Like if we go person.1 underscore first name, we can access it. Like it doesn't actually prevent us from doing it, but it's a common convention that developers understand that you're not supposed to do this. There is a new way in JavaScript that we can really protect them, which I'm going to get to later, but this was the convention for a very long time, and you're probably going to run into this. But since I've added an underscore, now I can keep my getter as first name. So if I do person1 dot first name, okay, so I'm actually, this is happening here. We're actually doing, recursion is happening because I have this and this now matching. What I return from here should be the property. So we want to do this underscore first name. Now, at the moment, it's just returning the same exact thing, the first name that's passed in. But what if I want to make this uppercase? I want to make sure it's uppercase. Well, I could edit this and I could say dot char at. So if you remember this from a bunch of sections ago, we can take the first character and call to uppercase, right? And then we want to concatenate onto that the rest of the name. So this dot underscore first name, and we can use dot slice. If we pass in 1, it's basically going to return everything except the first letter, and the first letter is going to be here uppercased. So now if I save, you can see that we're getting John with uppercase J. So we basically have a method, but we're calling it like a property. Okay, we're not doing this. We're not having to have parentheses on the end. So that's one, that's actually a couple reasons that I mentioned why you would do this. One, you want to keep this private. You don't want people to access this directly. Two, you might want to add some functionality onto it. Now we can also create setters. So if we do, let's say, set first name, And setters are always going to take in a single value that you want to set it to. And what we want to do here is say this dot whatever property we want to set, so first name, to the whatever we want to set it to. Now in this case, I do want to set it to the value, but I want to also make sure it's uppercase. So I'm just going to copy this, and here we'll say value, and then I'll paste that in, but instead of this dot first name before slice, we want to say value. Now, because I have this setter and I have it set first to first name, what I can do is say person1 dot first name, not underscore first name. I don't want to access or directly access the property. I want to access the setter. So I'm going to say I want that to be, let's say, Joe with a lowercase j. And then let's console log person1 to see what that contains. And as you can see, it now has underscore first name Joe with a capital J, because when I set it, right, when I set it like this, it actually called the setter. It didn't directly set the property. Now, you'd probably want to do this for the last name too, but what I would do, since this is, I'm repeating myself here and here with the two uppercase. If I do this for the last name, that'll be even more repeating myself. So what I would do is create a function in here called like capitalize, we'll say capitalize first. And we'll have that take in a value. And then what I'll do is just grab this and we'll return that. So that'll capitalize whatever we pass in. And now I can just set this dot first name for the setter. I can set it to this dot capitalize first, because the method is still within this class. So I have to use the this keyword. And then I'd pass in value. And then here I'd say this dot capitalize first. And here I'd pass in this dot underscore first name, because I'm getting it. I'm returning this, but I'm capitalizing it first. If I save that, we're going to get the same results. And let's say that I want to do the same thing for the last name. I just copy this getter and setter, and then we could just replace first name with last name. Okay, so now if we come down here, if we want to get the last name, let's say person1 dot last name, and I get Doe, and it's uppercase, right? Because we have that in the getter. And if I wanted to set the last name, let's say, I don't know, Smith with lowercase s, and then we'll set last name. Now if we look at the person console log, we get Joe Smith. Now you might want to have a full name. So this is another reason why we may want a getter for that, because we want to combine the first and last name. So let's say get full name. We just want to simply return. I'll use some backticks here, and we'll say this dot first name, and then we'll add on this dot last name. And then we can come down here, and just like we can do with the first name and last name, we can do console log person dot full name, person1 dot full name, and I get Joe Smith. It's not going to actually be added here as a property, but we can see in the prototype here, we can see our getters and setters. So get full name is right here. All right, so those are getters and setters with classes. In the next video, I'm going to show you how we can use them with constructor functions and object literals.